Alexander Murph, and we are in our safety lab here in our plant in Streetsboro, Ohio. And we're going to show you a few of our product testing and things that go into testing our products to make sure that they're safe and that your kids don't get hurt or injured or anything that happens to them, that could happen to them while they're playing with our products. So I'm really excited. Thanks for doing this.
No problem.
It's going to be so cool. How long have you been here?
I've been here 10 years in December.
Woohoo! Congratulations.
Thank you.
What is your official job here?
My official job, my title is Director of Product Safety and Compliance. I'm in charge of the lab, making sure we test all of our toys for the applicable standards for wherever we sell them at, send them to the third party, answering questions, just making sure that we put out a good, safe product.
Awesome, cool. So we're going to show you 3, depending on time, 4 tests that go into our products. And then we have a few questions that you guys asked us on Facebook that we're going to get some live answers from. And then that'll be it. So you ready?
Here we go.
Okay,
Let's do
so
it.
we're starting here, correct?
Yeah, so right here, this is our stability test. Anything we have a wheeled vehicle that someone's going to sit in, or a chair or stool, we have to put it at 15 degrees, put a weight on it, make sure it doesn't tip over. First, I'm going to demonstrate just quickly what that test is.
Is there a reason for 15 degrees?
Yes, the U.S. standard requires us to put it at 15 degrees and at 50 pounds. You have to put the weight on it, make sure it doesn't tip over. We have to do it on this side, and then we would flip it over and do it on the other side. So it's just to make sure that if you're sitting in the vehicle, it doesn't tip over if you go up a hill or go on a little bit of an incline.
Oh, cool.
So,
And you said 50 pounds?
50 pounds for the U.S. standard.
Interesting.
So
Cool.
the European and ISO, Australia and Europe have a little different higher weight limits and different angles, but this is the U.S. one at this time.
Cool. So, like you said, this is if they're on like a slanted hill or something.
If they're on the hill by themselves, no one's holding it, they sit in there, you don't have to worry about it tipping over and the kid falling out.
Awesome.
All right.
Interesting. All right, so what's this? This is a treadmill.
This is our treadmill test. We do this test to basically check our products when we run them to see what happens with them. So when we turn it on, we'll see what's going on. It's going to get a little noisy, bumpy, but this is what we do here. Basically, this test is to see what happens with our wagons or any wheeled vehicles. We put a weight in it, we put it on this treadmill, and there's little bumps on this treadmill to show basically like if there was bumps in the road or curbs and so forth, what happens with our vehicle as we have kids sitting in it, as it's jumping around and bumping all around. So we want to make sure that a parent can put their child in it, pull it around over uneven surfaces, and nothing happens to the child and nothing happens to the toys. So it's a basic performance testing that we do on anything we have wheels on.
I remember the first time I saw this, I thought it was so cool. Like I saw a buggy on the treadmill and I was like, oh my God, and it makes sense.
Yes.
Like, so you had said, you told me you run it for how long?
Okay, we do this test, we do it for 8 hours a day for a week. So basically 40 hours, and we put it out about 3.5, 4 miles per hour. So by the end of the week, we've done almost 100 or a little more miles, depending upon what it looks like. Sometimes we'll do a little bit longer just to get a good view or see what happens, but we test it, we look at it every day, then we see if there's anything, how it's acting and reacting, and if it looks good, we keep on going.
And the weight, obviously, is to mimic the child.
Weight is to mimic the child. We have whatever weight limits we put on our wagons and our buggies. We use a typical weight, we put that in there, and then we let it run. So also in the standard, it gives you typical ages and typical weights, and we use the one that we like to use here. 50 pounds seems to be a pretty good average weight for our age group, so that's what we want to test it to.
So if you run this, and the wagon, the wheels are worn and whatever at the end of the week, do you then take that back to development and say, okay, we need to figure out how to solve this problem?
Yeah, we can. I mean, we're going to have some wear and tear, and that's what we want to see. We want to see how it wears down. So in future iterations, or we see something we don't like, we can go back and improve upon that. So for instance, if the tread doesn't seem to be holding up well, I can go back to our engineering group and we can get a different tread that will sustain longer, has more resistance to it so it doesn't wear down. So this is a pure performance to see how it holds up.
Cool. And this is wagons, buggies, anything with wheels?
Anything with wheels, we're going to stick it on here and we're going to run it for a week.
Cool.
So,
Bet you didn't know that. All right, so now we're going to come over here. And for those of you who don't know, this is one of our new kitchens. This is our Love to Entertain kitchen that our lovely toy testers got to test. this last week. So you'll be able to find us in Target coming soon. So just a fun fact. So what do we have here?
All right, what I have here is our bite tester. A lot of our toys you see with the kitchens and so forth have a lot of small parts, and a lot of our kids like to take these and put it into their mouth and bite on it. So we want to make sure that any item that a child can put into his mouth and bite doesn't break apart. So this test symbolizes a kid putting an item in their mouth and biting down on it. So if you want to give me,
You want a bun,
I
lettuce, tomato?
I want the tomatoes, because I don't like tomatoes. So basically we take this piece, we pop it in here. We have a force gauge, and we apply pressure on this up to 100 pounds. This little contraption here has ridges on it that are supposed to mimic teeth. So if the material isn't strong enough, it will punch right through it. So we want to make sure that doesn't happen. So we put it in here. I basically come down here, and I do up here until I get up to 100 pounds. We do 100 pounds, we hold it for 10 seconds. We pull it off. Then we look at the part to make sure it doesn't come off. You'll see little ridges here. So it made an impression, but it didn't break apart. So as long as it doesn't break apart, there's no choking hazard, and we know we can go forward.
When you showed this to me earlier this week, I was like, I would have never thought that this is something that goes into bringing the products out. It's so cool. Why 100 pounds?
That's what the standard calls for.
All right, easy enough.
We follow ASTM standards, and they have a set standards for all toy testings, and depending upon the item and the age group, the lowest age group was 100 pounds. So we want to make sure that we can hit the lowest to the highest age groups.
That's cool. I like that a lot.
So, and we do this with anything that can be taken out and put into your mouth. So your forks, your spoons, any type of food, we do this test on. Cell phone also goes into the mouth and can be bitten on. We put it in here to make sure that it doesn't fall apart.
Cool. I like that a lot. That's a cool one. Okay, so let's do the last one that we had added here.
All right.
You're going to have to explain this one a little better.
I will. This is an XRF machine. This machine we use to scan our items to make sure there's no heavy metals, basically lead or cadmium in the items. The US has a standard that all toys have to have less than 100 parts per million of lead in it. So we take this machine here, we put a sample in there, we scan it, and we want to make sure we're beneath that 100 parts per million. Our stuff is typically less than 5 parts per million or lower. So as you see right here, we have not detected, which means they can't detect any lead in it, and this air has a little bit of air, and the air is 4 parts per million or less. So this would be a perfectly safe item to use. So we scan all of our incoming materials, all of our products that we put out into the field with this.
Yeah, and then you said it also actually goes through more testing, correct?
So we scan this in-house ourselves to make sure we're good and safe. Then after we get the toy, we take the toy and we send it to a third-party lab, and they do something a little more invasive, but that will give us the same results. And they look for even more materials that come in.
So then it's like it's checked twice before it's actually...
So we scan it to make sure it's fine for us to process and it does well, and then we send it to a third party for verification that we did our stuff right. And they give us a report that lets us know that we're good to go, and that we can sell the product.
Yeah, it's cool, and it's good to know.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so we have a few questions that we were asked on Facebook, and the first one comes from Matt, and he wants to know how you know how much weight a wagon can hold.
Well, that is what we determine by the age. We figure out what the age limit for the wagon is, and then we go back to those ASTM standards, and it says for an age group of like 8, you have to put so much weight into it. So we figure out what the age limit is, we look at the graph, we pick out that weight, we test it to that weight, and then when we're doing wagons, they also have an overload weight, which is usually 2 or 3 times that weight to make sure that the wagon can hold it in case they pack people or pack stuff into it.
Or like actually put like our touring wagon, like we put the soil on it.
So we'll do, so we do regular weight core there, and then we do overloads to make sure that can hold an overload.
Is it the same process for a buggy?
Yes, it is. Buggies and cars all have the same thing. Whatever the weight limit is, we put that in, and then we double it or triple it depending upon if it's 2 or 1 person on it to make sure that can hold it without breaking down.
Cool. And then Tony B on Facebook wants to know how many times you test an item and how many tests are involved.
All right. Well, we test an item depending upon the country 2 to 3 times a year.
Yes.
We test it at least that many times. So in the U.S. we test it at least once a year, and so forth for the European and Australia. So and then how many tests are involved with it? Oh man, probably at least 10 to 20 different tests from depending on the item. For instance, our buggies and our wagons, We have the stability testing. We have a tension testing that you pull on things. We have a torque testing that you twist things. There's the bite test, for instance, from the kitchen. So depending upon the item, anywhere from 10 to 15 tests.
Interesting. This is cool. I'm glad we did this.
Yeah,
and
so-
I learned a lot. I'm sure you guys learned a lot too. And you did a great job explaining everything. Because it seems a lot more complicated than you made it sound.
So we do all the testing here to make sure it does well, and then we send it out for third party, like I said, for verification. So
And then
everything they can do there, for the most part, we can do here for our toys.
And then it ends up in the store
Yes,
from
it
there,
ends up in
right?
the store from there.
Cool, awesome. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. I hope you learned as much as I did and thought it was as cool. You did great.
Thank you.
We'll be back in 2 weeks for a New Toy Tuesday, and you'll have to tune in then for a chance to win one of our awesome new toys. Until then, my name is Brittany, and this is Alexander, and we'll see you next time.